Hi students! I'm going to talk to you about stative verbs, but before I do that I just want to encourage you to take notes when you are reading on Canvas, so that's like a lecture, or when you're watching a video lecture. Take notes just the same way you would in class. That way you're thinking about the information, you're putting it in your own words, and you have notes you can look at when you're in class or when you might not have a computer nearby. All right? So I'm going to talk to you about stative verbs right now. Really, there's two types of verbs, active verbs and stative verbs. And most verbs are your active verbs. These are actions. These are activities that you do, like kick, run, talk, argue. These are all active verbs. They're actions that you do something, right? So actions can be used in any tense. But stative verbs really aren't actions. These are words like love, things like have, seem. When you say something like, I like you, or you seem sad, there's no real action happening. You're not seeming. There's nothing that you're doing. So these are not considered actions. So we call them states or stative verbs. These kinds of verbs really can't be used in progressive tenses. So we would not use it in present progressive or past progressive. Basically, no ing. The most common stative verbs are on page 7 in your book, so you can read along if you like to have that. But I've divided them into categories. For me, it's easier to remember. So stative verbs can be the be verbs, like is, are, am, was, were. They can also be verbs of mind, so things that happen in your head, like you know something, you believe, something seems, or you remember, you understand. There's no real action here. These are states in your mind. There's also verbs of emotion, things like love, like, prefer, hate. So you would say, I like, I prefer, not I am liking or I am preferring. And then the verbs of the senses. So look, as in you look sad, or see, as in I see a bear, or taste, as in the soup tastes good. These are verbs of the senses, and they're considered stative verbs. So you would say you look sad, not you are looking sad. Or the soup tastes good, not it's tasting good. And then we have the verbs of possession. So that means you own something, ownership. So those are things like have, I have a hat, I have a dog, or belong to. The hat belongs to me, or the dogs belong to me. I would not say the dogs are belonging to me. So remember that when we talk about the present progressive, we talk about how it's for actions in progress. Well, these verbs are not really actions. They're states, and so we can't use them with progressive verbs. So on page 9 in your book, there is an exercise 15. So I took these questions from exercise 15. So take a look at these examples. This isn't my book. It to my. So it belongs or it is belonging. Which one makes more sense? You would say it belongs, right? It belongs to my. Why is that one better? Because belong means to have, it's ownership, And so you're going to use the simple tense. You're not going to use the ing tenses. How about the second example? Ask Ahmed for your book. He has it or he is having it? What do you think? Did you say he has it? Because that is correct. He has it. We would not say he is having it. How about your book is over there? Ahmed holds it or Ahmed is holding it? Well, in the case of the verb hold, this is actually an action. I'm holding my water bottle, right? And we're talking about right now. So, in this case, we are going to use the progressive tense. Is holding. Number 3, everything is okay. I believe you or I am believing you. So this is one of those mental states. So we're not going to use a progressive verb, even though it's happening right now. So we're going to say, I believe you. And then our 5th option, Olga is smiling. She blank a good time. She has a good time or she is having. This is a tricky one. In this case, you are going to say she is having a good time. Do you know why? So, usually the verb have means to own something, possess it. But in this case, it's more like experiencing. Olga is having an experience. She's experiencing a good time. It's a different meaning. So, you know, English, it always has these little tricky things you have to remember. There are several verbs that have different meanings. And some of the meanings could be stative, and the other meanings could be active. So you have to think about the meaning of the verb, and is there an action happening? So we're going to look at a few verbs here together. We're going to look at have, smell, think, and look. All right? So we're going to look at 2 sets of sentences and think about what's the meaning in each. So in 1A, we have I have a hat, and in 1B, I am having a good time. We just talked about that one, right? So the first one, I have a hat, is ownership. So you don't have the choice to use a progressive verb here. We don't use progressive verbs with that stative meaning, to own something. And then in 1B, I am having a good time. This is not ownership. This is an example of experiencing. I am experiencing a good time. So we can use that ing form. Let's look at number 2. The difference might not seem obvious at first. The food smells good. And why are you smelling your socks? So in the first case, the food smells good. Imagine I walk in the room, I smell the food. It's like I have no choice. I'm not trying to smell it. I'm not doing something, right? We just say the food smells good, not the food is smelling good. But in the second case, the meaning is different. Can you see it? Why are you smelling your socks? The progressive meaning of smelling, the active meaning of smelling, I should say, is to sniff. So I have my socks and I don't know if they're dirty, and I'm smelling to check. All right? So if I'm actively smelling my socks, that's an action. So take a moment here to compare the meaning in the next 2 sets. I think that cell phones make life easier. And I am thinking about the answer to your question. You look sad. Are you okay? I'm looking for my keys. Do you know where they are? How could you explain the difference between those? So in the case of 3A, I think is more like I believe. It's my opinion. It's my opinion that cell phones make life easier. That's the stative meaning of think. In B, I'm using my brain. I'm thinking about the answer. I'm doing an activity. How about 4? In 4A, you look sad. That's like you appear, you seem. I notice that you look sad. Are you okay? Right? But in 4B, I'm doing an activity, I'm action, I'm searching. I'm looking. Where are my keys? I can't find them. In that case, it's obviously the active meaning. So I can use the progressive verb. So I hope this helped make stative verbs a little bit more clear for you. You can watch this as many times as you need, and hopefully that prepares you for your next activity where you have to think about if something is stative or active when you're deciding what verb tense to use. Good luck!